When a judge orders the former president's daughter to appear in court and testify under oath within 10 days, it is not routine. It is not background noise in an endless news cycle. It is a line being crossed that the Trump family has spent years and millions of dollars in legal fees trying to avoid. For a long time, Ivanka Trump was sold to the public as something different, different from her father's chaos, different from her brother's aggressive loyalty, the polished one, the moderating influence, the one who could move from Trump Tower boardrooms to global conferences and cable news studios without ever quite getting her hands dirty. A 10-day subpoena blows straight through that carefully managed distance. Because a subpoena with a deadline like this is more than a piece of paper. It is a simple, blunt message from the judicial system to one of the most powerful political families in America. Your time is up. You no longer get to decide if you will participate. You only get to decide how. To understand why this matters, you have to look at what Ivanka has been doing for the last several years, slowly, methodically stepping back. After leaving the White House, she skipped the launch of her father's 2024 campaign. She moved to Florida but avoided the rallies. When indictments started landing on Donald Trump's doorstep, she released short, carefully drafted statements and then went quiet. It was not an accident. It was a strategy. Lawyers around Trump's orbit have always understood something basic. The more you talk publicly, the more you lock yourself into stories that can be tested under oath later. Silence is not just PR, it is legal survival. And Ivanka, more than almost anyone else in that family, understood the value of options. Options to cooperate, options to deny knowledge, options to say, I wasn't involved. A judge demanding testimony within 10 days is the judicial system saying, those options are running out. Subpoenas are not invitations, they are commands. They come with teeth, contempt orders, fines, in extreme cases, even arrest warrants if someone flatly defies them. And when a judge sets a short clock, 10 days instead of some open-ended we'll schedule it when we can, that clock is not just ticking for Ivanka Trump. It is ticking for every lawyer, every family member, every political ally trying to decide what this moment means. Because this is not just about her last name, it is about her role. Before she was first daughter, she was an executive vice president of the Trump Organization. Her signature is on deals, her emails are in corporate archives. Her name appears in loan packages, internal memos, and project proposals. Banks saw her as a key contact. Partners saw her as the polished face of a rough-edged brand. Prosecutors and investigators see something else, a potential bridge between Donald Trump's public rhetoric and the private business decisions behind it. Subpoenaing Ivanka Trump is not only about pressuring Donald Trump, it is about asking a very specific question. How much did she know, and when did she know it? And that is where the 10-day deadline becomes so important. Judges do not set short deadlines in high-profile cases without a reason. A judge who has watched delay after delay, appeal after appeal, stalling tactic after stalling tactic, sends a clear signal when he or she says, enough, 10 days, no more extensions, no more games. Legal experts reading an order like that all see the same thing, a court that is finished being patient. It also tells you something about where investigators believe they are in their case. You don't compel a witness of this profile, on this tight a schedule, unless you think the questions you intend to ask are ready, that the documents have been reviewed, that the timeline has been reconstructed, that gaps have been identified, and that Ivanka's testimony is needed now, not months from now, to fill them. For Ivanka, that creates a fork in the road, and neither path is easy. On one side is resistance. Fight the subpoena, file motions to quash it, argue that the request is overbroad, burdensome, politically motivated, raise every legal shield available. That has been the Trump playbook for years. Delay, challenge, appeal, and hope that time, elections, or public fatigue will change the landscape. But judges have seen that playbook before. Many of them have already ruled on it, sometimes in scorching language. Each time a court rejects those arguments, it becomes harder to recycle them without looking like you are simply trying to run out the clock. On the other side is compliance. Show up, sit down, raise your right hand, swear to tell the truth, and then answer questions, knowing that every word is being recorded. Every answer can be compared against emails, calendars, text messages, and the sworn testimony of others. For someone who has tried so hard to stay adjacent to the Trump orbit without being fully pulled into its legal gravity, that is not just uncomfortable, it is dangerous. Think about the dynamic inside the wider Trump world as news of a 10-day subpoena for Ivanka spreads. Donors who once believed the legal battles would stay confined to Donald Trump himself have to reconsider. Advisors who have told themselves that family members would stay protected now see one of those family members being pulled to the center of the battlefield. Loyalists who mocked prosecutors as weak suddenly confront a simple fact. If a judge can drag Ivanka Trump into a courtroom, nobody in that circle is truly untouchable. And yet, for all of that, the most important pressure point may be closer to home: the psychological war inside Ivanka Trump herself. For years, she has lived in two overlapping worlds. In one, she is the daughter of a man who built an empire around loyalty and public image. In the other, she is a figure with her own brand, her own social circles, her own carefully curated reputation for being composed, reasonable, and forward-looking. A subpoena with a 10-day deadline forces those worlds to collide. It forces a choice. Do you lean into the family expectation of absolute loyalty, or do you prioritize your own legal risk and your own future? Because under oath, loyalty has limits. There is one line even the most devoted ally has to worry about: perjury. Ivanka Trump knows that. Her lawyers absolutely know that. So when a judge gives her 10 days, what he or she is really doing is forcing a countdown on that decision. 10 days to review documents, 10 days to rehearse possible questions, 10 days to decide how much distance she is willing to put between her story and her father's public narrative. 10 days to accept that once she walks into that room and sits in that chair, some doors can never be closed again. And while that clock is ticking for Ivanka, it is also ticking for someone else, Donald Trump himself. Because a daughter under subpoena is not just a witness, she is a symbol that the firewall he tried to build between the family and the cases is cracking. Inside Trump's political orbit, news of the subpoena didn't trickle out, it detonated. Within minutes of the order appearing on the docket, legal reporters had pushed alerts to millions of phones. Cable networks cleared their lower thirds and ran the same phrase in heavy fonts: Ivanka Trump ordered to testify. What most people didn't see were the quieter notifications lighting up behind the scenes: encrypted group chats among former White House aides, emails between Republican strategists and donors, urgent messages from lawyers who have spent years tracking every twist of Trump's legal exposure. For them, this wasn't just another headline. It was a signal that prosecutors and judges were done pretending that the family was off limits. In the first hours after a subpoena like this, three conversations always begin at once. The first is legal, the second is political, the third is emotional. The legal conversation dissects the order itself, its scope, its limits, its vulnerabilities. The political conversation weighs the damage to the Trump brand. But the emotional conversation is the one that matters most to Ivanka personally, because a subpoena collapses the myth that powerful people are insulated from ordinary pressure. Ivanka Trump is not just a political figure. She is a daughter, a wife, a mother, and a business person. 10 days is not a lot of time to decide how all of those identities will collide under oath. Donald Trump has always responded to legal threats with denial and attack. Ivanka's brand has never operated that way. She built her image on poise, not public brawling. That difference mattered when times were good. It becomes existential when the legal system demands answers. There is another layer here that legal analysts have watched for years: proximity. Investigations move inward, from aides to executives to family. For a long time, Ivanka's place in the inner circle was known but untouched. Compelling her testimony means investigators believe they have reached a critical stage. That changes leverage across the entire Trump ecosystem. Executives who thought the kids were protected now know better. Staffers who followed orders must wonder whether family testimony will contradict public narratives. Judges do not like being lied to. They do not like endless delay. A 10-day order signals a court that is done waiting. This subpoena lands in a landscape of multiple indictments, adverse rulings, and mounting evidence. Ivanka's testimony does not stand alone. It plugs into a much larger web. For the public, this moment feels like a test of the rule of law itself. If she complies, it sends one message. If she defies the order, it sends another. If she appears but hedges, the truth battle moves into the fine print. Three centers of power now shape what happens next: the court, the prosecutors, and the Trump family. Inside that family, the hardest calculation will be made. Loyalty versus survival, brand versus risk, history versus obligation. That is why this 10-day subpoena feels bigger than it looks on paper. It is a stress test of whether power still bends the system or whether the system can finally push back. In the coming days, statements will be issued and outrage will be staged. But beneath the noise, the reality is simple. The law has knocked on a door that has been protected for a very long time. In 10 days, either Ivanka Trump walks into a room and raises her right hand, or she tests how far privilege can stretch. The country will be watching not just what she does, but what the system is willing to enforce.